That's it! The last ever live chapter of the founders of heavy metal is over. And it was a very emotional one. So let's take a look at everything that happened at Back to the Beginning concert, discuss some strange things about it, and then talk about a hint on the future of Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne. Here you go. By the way guys, real quick, as always, please do not hesitate to comment on anything you hear or see in this video, and especially if you disagree with me, because the whole point of our Metal Pilgrim channel is of course to start a conversation. But alright, let's do it. Well, first of all, the idea behind Back to the Beginning concert was to celebrate the entire Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne's legacy. Yeah, all of it. And given they are basically the forefathers of heavy metal, that also meant celebrating heavy metal as a whole. And that's exactly what they did, turning one day at Villa Park in Birmingham into a full metal marathon. So basically an analog of Live 8 in 2025, only entirely for metalheads. Just as anticipated, all of the guest artists present that day played a set of 3 to 6 songs each, which included their own originals and covers on Black Sabbath or Ozzy Osbourne. Kicking off with Mastodon covering Supernaut, Anthrax doing an insane rendition of Into the Void, Lizzie Hale and Hailstorm killing it with Ozzy's Perry Mason, and dozens of other musicians paying touchy tributes to Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne, some of which were simply incredible. And by the way, here I just wanted to point out that there is actually a chance that we may hear some of those renditions in the future as well. As early this morning, I actually already received a press release from Lamb of God, saying that their rendition of Children of the Grave, which they performed at Back to the Beginning, is already available as a standalone single, which may mean that there is actually a compilation album coming our way very soon with all those songs included. And if that is the case, I simply hope that it will also feature the wonderful homage the oldest friends of Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath did a couple of days before that show, as Metal God's rendition of War Pigs was simply flawless. Generals gathered in their masses. Oh, and on that note, yes, the entire concert has been recorded by Mercury Studios, the same studio which previously released Metallica Saved My Life and a gazillion other rock and metal documentaries. So yes, this entire concert, and possibly a bit more about it, will be available for all of us to enjoy very, very soon. But anyways, going back to the guest appearances. In addition to solo performances, the thing which so many of us anticipated were the supergroups announced previously. And although if you take a look at the program, you will see that there were nominally only 2 of those, in reality there were actually 13 different lineups of legendary musicians present on stage at some point during that concert. And interestingly enough, those bands played both Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath covers, but also did several most iconic songs from the repertoire of the bands represented on stage, including Rock Candy by Monrose, Train Kept Trollin', Walk This Way and Whole Lotta Love by Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin, and Breaking the Law by Judas Priest, of which we will talk in a moment.
Hello everybody, I'm KK Downing of Judas Priest.
But for now, I just have to point out that although it was simply incredible to see all of the legendary musicians who walked up on that stage, yes, all of them, for all of the Ozzy Osbourne fans, it was of course extra special to see the legendary guitarist Jake E. Lee rocking his guitar once again. And although, in all honesty, I do understand that it might have been a bit too complicated logistic-wise to include J.K. Lee on the set together with Ozzy Osbourne, especially since Zach was rocking out there as well, but still, I kinda don't get why he didn't get to perform his iconic Bark at the Moon solo, especially since that song was played a bit later in the set. But nevertheless, the whole fact that we witnessed J.K. Lee playing The Ultimate Sin and Shot in the Dark one last time together with the legendary musicians was already a huge gift to all of the Ozzy Osbourne fans. But at the same time, although I was of course happy to see everyone up on that stage, I have to point out that there were some MVPs that night, at least for me. And the first one of those is of course the legendary KK Dowd, as the power and energy with which he ran up on that stage was simply unmatched, and the way the Birmingham crowd has greeted the co-creator of heavy metal, who once again represented both the Black Country and the friendship Judas Priest and Black Sabbath had throughout the years, was simply incredible. While just seeing KK up on that stage was already emotional, hearing him tear through Judas Priest Breaking the Law and Snowblind was pure fire. And at least to me, it didn't feel like a gas spot. It felt like a Birmingham Brotherhood moment, as it was Black Sabbath and Judas Priest who kicked off that entire thing we call heavy metal today. And although Priest of course were not able to perform at Back to the Beginning because of their obligations to Scorpions and their insane concert which was happening at the same time, KK's serene solos were a beautiful nod to their shared legacy. And talking about guitars overall, the other guy I simply have to underline here is Nuno Bettencourt. I mean, that guy was just everywhere, jumping in both supergroups and throwing solos which were both technically insane and dripping with attitude, as if Nuno was simply on a mission to melt the face of everyone on that stadium. In addition to that, at least in my opinion, Chad Smith showed up like a wrecking ball of groove, which was definitely one of the coolest drumming performances that night and which, in my opinion, simply drove the show forward. And that's why, at least to me, although I never really was a fan of Chad and his drumming, I mean, he was definitely one of the MVPs that day. But then there was another one, the one which, at least to me, was the most pleasant surprise of all. The legendary Steven Tyler, who in addition to everything made a grand return up on a big stage once again. And boy did he rock it! Because here's the thing, hear me out, I have a huge respect to R. Smith and Steven Tyler, but if we're being very honest, his performance at the Grammy Awards a couple of months ago, well, it wasn't up to par with what we know Steven can do. And this, of course, was absolutely understandable, once again, given everything he's gone through lately. But last night, he freaking killed it! And this combined with the fact that Joe Perry is kinda hinting at an R. Smith reunion, of which we spoke in our previous Metal Digest, well, I simply cannot wait for Steven to go back up on stage and rock it once again with his main act. Oh, and the last but definitely not the least of the artists which I kinda wanted to underline in this video is the one which so many true metalheads simply love to make fun of, but the one which in reality went up on stage, destroyed the crowd, and did it in a wonderful, humble, and a very honorable way to Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne. As the thing is that, at least to me, Metallica's set was one of the highlights of the entire Back to the Beginning concert. And yes, say what you want, but I think that most likely the only other band out of the ones performing last night who will be celebrated in a very similar way to Black Sabbath when they decide to hang up their instruments is going to be the one started by Lars and James. Yet, while all of those guest performances by some of the most legendary names in the world of heavy metal were of course incredible, well, in all honesty, that's not exactly what we came there for. And that's exactly why when it was finally time for Ozzy's solo set, well, the energy at that stadium simply shifted. And from a fun party festival, it simply turned into one of the most emotional concerts there had ever been in our favorite music. Seated on his black bat throne, draped in silver, with the legendary Zakk Wylde as well as Mike Inez, Tommy Clufetos and Adam Wakeman by his side, the Prince of Darkness kicked off his set with I Don't Know going into Mr. Crowley, and Ono playing 5 songs from his solo days. But the craziest thing in that entire performance was that despite all of the hardships and everything the Prince of Darkness has gone through in the past years, and despite being 76 freaking years old, somehow Ozzy still sounded incredible. As I don't know, maybe there's some kind of weird technology that we still don't know about it, but at least from what I heard, it looked like there were no backing tracks. And it was actually Ozzy Osbourne singing. And boy did he do it well. But in reality, this is actually the part which not that many people, or at least I personally, cared the least about. As the whole point of this last Back to the Beginning Ozzy Osbourne concert was emotions, and that's exactly what simply was overflowing during that set. As first of all, you could simply see the joy on Ozzy's face the moment he saw the reaction of his loyal fanbase. And the many tears we could see in the audience simply just once again showcased how much this legend meant to so many of us metalheads around the world. And for me, the most emotional part of Ozzy's set was not even Crazy Train, with which he closed his last ever solo set, but a touchy rendition of Mama, I'm Coming Home, which was pretty obvious that Ozzy Osbourne was trying to sing while pushing through his own tears. On a more cheerful note, I also wanted to point out how much command this man still has while basically not moving around the stage, as even while sitting on his throne and simply throwing hands up in the air from time to time, Ozzy still has gotten so much charisma that he was able to make 50,000 people go wild on that stadium. And then came the culmination. After hours of celebrations, tribute sets, and emotional performances, it was time for the originals, the four boys who co-created heavy metal. And when Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, and Ozzy Osbourne hit the stage together, it felt like universe just hit a pause. It was the first time the original Black Sabbath lineup played together on stage in over 2 decades. And the 4 songs the boys performed that night, those being Warpigs, NIB, Iron Man, and Paranoid, by themselves were already worthy every penny the fans spent on that concert. Now, in my opinion, there's simply no point in discussing the boys' overall form and the performance itself, as this show was not about that. Although I just have to point out that watching that concert, I once again realized why Geezer Butler is one of the most influential and one of the best bassists out there, but that's a topic for a different video. In reality, this show was about emotions, and about emotions only. And the most important aspects of the show for me was just seeing with how much respect Ozzy Osbourne introduced his bandmates, leaving all the fights and all the crap they went through behind them at last, and acknowledging that it was the synergy of those 4 boys that made Black Sabbath who they are today. And the craziest thing is that if we take a closer look, we will see that it is most likely that Ozzy Osbourne was trying to stand up at least a couple of times during the final Black Sabbath set. And although he sadly was not able to do that, I think still the energy the 4 guys, including the shirtless 77-year-old Bill Ward, were producing on that stage was felt not only by everyone in the crowd on that stadium, but also everyone who was rocking out insanely in front of their TV screens, including myself. So yes, in my opinion, this was a perfect tribute to the legendary heavy metal band. And I'll be honest with you, I did cry last night. I did cry once again today. And every time I remember Ozzy Osbourne screaming from the top of his lungs, "Get fucking crazy, this is the last one," it simply gets me. So yes, thank you Ozzy Osbourne, Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, and Tony Iommi for the incredible gift and the incredible legacy you're leaving us with. As the truth is that with that concert, we're getting one step closer to an end of an era. As of right now, with Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne gone, the only original heavy metal band left on this planet is Judas Priest. And so, yes, let's enjoy and cherish the legends for as long as we can. Because yes, it was Black Sabbath and later on Judas Priest who forged the music which changed all of our lives forever.
So you have a more stable life now?
No.
But anyways, what do you guys personally think about Back to the Beginning? And are you personally happy with the way the legends were treated that night? Please let us know in the comments. As well as how you will personally react if Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath will not actually call it quits, and after their last ever live concert they will continue making music together. As in case you guys missed our yesterday's Metal Digest, in the latest interviews, Ozzy Osbourne once again confirmed that he is finalizing his next studio album already. In addition to that, Tony Iommi and Bill Ward confirmed for the very first time in 20 years that they would want the 4 original boys from Black Sabbath to get together to write new music sometime in the future. And we all know that such words most likely mean that they have already spoken about it. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video, guys, and we will prevail. Slava Ukraini!